Hey everybody, final thoughts time for the Matchbox collection, but before I get to that, please remember folks, this was a paid preview for a game that's on Kickstarter right now, so you should take any opinions I've got with a grain of salt, or even better, just go watch the 5 run-throughs I made for each of these games so you can decide for yourself if it looks like this is a nice value proposition. And with that out of the way, let me just say, I am very, very impressed by this collection. There is a lot of variety amongst these 5 games. Variety in terms of ideal player counts and game weight, so you can make games that, or choose games that appeal to different groups. There's a lot to be said here for the strengths of this collection, and I am going to break down each one of them. I'll just go through them one at a time. But before I get to that, on a high level, I've got to say the form factor of these is great. I mean, just the actual box design that has this Matchbox feel where things slide out, that's just kind of a nice little tactile touch. But more importantly, by keeping every one of these games to just a simple deck of cards and a handful of tokens, all very, very high quality cards and art and tokens, you can carry with you. This is such a great portable collection to ensure that you'll have a game for any situation you find yourself in. And that's a real strength to this game. So much packed into such a tiny little cramped space. But while that is maybe arguably the greatest strength of this collection, I am going to complain a little bit. It's probably the biggest weakness as well, because bear in mind, I've got prototypes here, but these prototype rule books that came with these, which are basically these simple little sheets of paper that expand out, well, not only is the text super duper tiny, so that's something to bear in mind. I did have some people when I was playing with these, and I was reading some of the rules, and they were having a hard time trying to even read them. So you're going to have to get out your reading glasses to read these. But they are, some of these games are relatively complex, and they're trying to squeeze a lot of information into a tiny bit of space. And so I did find it kind of challenging to teach myself the rules of some of these games, which is odd because the core rules of these games is so simple. In fact, if you check out the Kickstarter page, there's a quick little 2-minute video introducing the basics for each one of these games. I so wish I had watched those videos first, because in 2 minutes, those videos do a better job than these rule books of giving you a good understanding of the core of the game. And without those, I was, because I was playing this at a convention, I was like, okay, I think this is what this means, and but I'm not 100% certain. And when I eventually watched the video, yes, of course it does. So, like I said, it's a good thing. You can get so much gameplay into a tiny space, but these rule books, boy, at the very least, I think you're going to want to download these rule books so you can zoom them in and read them better. But I don't know. I certainly think I could use a little bit more work to get some of the more oddball, esoteric ideas across. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, the core games themselves work really well, and they're really simple once you understand. But I've had easier rule books, and I do think that's at least in part because they're trying to squeeze so much into so little here. So that'd be my main complaint. But don't let that turn you away, folks, because there's a lot to like here. So let's just talk about these 5. Let's talk about Rebis first. And Rebis, which is one of the ones that goes up to 4 players, is probably the most oddball of the games, or at least the one that I think requires maybe a play or two before you really start understanding its subtleties and intricacies. And it is certainly the game that is the most interactive, because half of the time in this game you are not going to be playing cards to your own tableau to try to build up points, but instead playing cards to other people's areas. And while that may seem bad because they don't want you to be playing negative cards on them and lowering their total points tallies for their little libraries that they're trying to build. They do want you to do it because they'll often be in situations where, okay, if nobody plays something to my library, I don't have the resources to close it down myself. I need you to come. Even if you're going to hit me a little bit, I am going to directly benefit from this. And you'll potentially benefit from it too. So there's really interesting. There's this constant ebb and flow of this game of trying trying to decide, okay, when am I just going to build up my own stuff, and when am I actually going to get involved in your stuff? And even if it hurts you, it still mutually benefits both of us. And that's why Rebis, of the 4 games, I think benefits the most from having 3 or 4 players. Some of these games, they're fine. I mean, some of them you only play at 2 players. But Rebis has to do a kind of special 2-player variant to replicate the function of a 3rd player, and I don't think it does as good a job as actually having a 3rd or ideally a 4th player there, because that's when the game really comes to life. Everybody can identify, oh my gosh, Bob over there, he's doing spectacularly. Okay, let's everybody agree to freeze him out and not help him. And that puts him in a situation where, okay, well, to help himself, he has to help us to be able to get the resources so he can close his own stuff down. But, so the interplay between players, the constant temporary alliances that will rise and fall, based on the state of the board is really lovely. But even from that, when you're trying to decide, well, okay, I can't play to my own, I got to play somebody else, who am I going to pick? There's more to it as well, because you'd be surprised how often you might actually play positive cards to somebody else's library if it actually suits you at the right time. I wouldn't have thought that reading. When I first read the rules, why would I ever do this? It definitely is something that comes up. Now, the 2-player rules work well, but I'm actually happy I played Rebis the first time as a 3-player game so I could get the full sense of just how surprising and delightful and deceptively deep this game is. The 2-player works well, but it would not be my favorite of this group for playing as 2-player. But really, I think it is the best game for a high player count because of all the unexpected ways it can evolve during play. But remember, folks, it is a game of surprising death. On the surface, it might seem like your choices are really obvious, but the longer you play, the more you start seeing some really intricate, deep evolutions of strategies that can play out in Rebis. Alrighty, then we got 15 days. Now, I have to admit, 15 days was the reason I was originally interested in this game because it is from designer Francesco Testini, and he's actually got 2 games. This one and Golems were both his, and I so love Xion from him. That's such a great, great game. I was really excited to see what Francesco would do, and I'm not disappointed. 15 days is great, and this is one that I think I'm not going to say it's my favorite, but I am going to say I think it's the one that works best at 2, 3, and 4. It works really well. And it's maybe the most traditional, the most straightforward. It is a game all about you're trying to make 4 straights, cards of matching suits 1 through 6, or 1 through 6, 1 through 6, and other straights of 6 to 1. Which is kind of a little unusual, but always chasing after that draft, trying to keep an eye on what you think your opponent needs, and even if they don't need it, because you can see, oh, they don't need another green 5, I can't let them have that anyway, because that's half of a wild card, and if they get that wild, oh my gosh, that can put them over the top. But it is a very, very tense game, although the card play and the set collection, the straight building, would be so, but the game really comes to life with the constant tug of war to get the power of those 4 spirit animals that radically change everything. Increasing your hand size, letting you draw cards faster and all of that. And, when you see somebody else getting one of those powers, you'll think, oh my God, they're totally going to win this game. How can they possibly beat? And that is such a cool power. Well, take it away from them. Or just get one of the other ones because they are all hugely powerful. And the only real danger is if you let one person glom all of them for too long, that person's probably going to run away with it. But that just means not only are you drafting to try to get your perfect straights with peak efficiency, but you are also drafting, say, to heck with efficiency, I will burn cards like crazy if I need to so that I can get an ugly straight that's not perfect. It means I'm going to have to pay later to buttress it up. That'll cost me later, but I got to get that spirit animal away from you now so that I can start benefiting and you don't. Really sharp, gorgeous game. Probably also, I would say, the most abstract of all of them. This kind of touchy-feely thing of the seasons out of balance and whatnot. This is very abstract, but very colorful, really clever. The player powers are awesome. The little wooden pieces are nice. It's just sweet and charming. And I really like this one a lot. 15 days. Then we've got Eiyo, or maybe it's Eiyo. This is the only one that is a solitaire-only game. And I've got to say, folks, it breaks my heart because it is so much fun. When I've played it solitaire, I'm just smiling from ear to ear all the way through. One, because of all of them, this is the most thematic. It really does capture that epic, drama of a big martial arts battle where there's just one samurai facing off, completely surrounded on all sides by a ton of attackers. And every card you play, I can only choose to focus on one of the 4 directions. Do I try to take them out to basically earn points so I can, store up that honor for the final round? When all of my when I'm on my last legs, I'm about to get taken down, that's when I go into overdrive, but only if I've earned honor all the way through. Or do I use these cards to temporarily deflect them, just to hold them at bay so that they won't make me bleed out as fast? But that means I'm losing the potential to gain. I'm basically losing honor that I'm going to need to make it through that final round. Very cool, very dramatic, and surprisingly puzzly too. I will say, I think the core design works wonderfully. I wonder what it would have been like if, when you have those more powerful cards that let you choose to hit, I'm going to hit in this space, or this space. Man, it would be amazing if one of those cards just let you hit all the spaces at once. It'd be way overpowered. The whole game would have to change, and it would be a bit less puzzly. Right now, it's just the right side, but I would love to get an even bigger boost of drama. Still, though, that's maybe I'm sure it's something they evaluated and tried to pursue because it would really ratchet up the drama and excitement even more. But with its sharp, fun, puzzly stuff, the long-term, okay, well, I've got to take that guy out because he's going to make me bleed, but if I take him out, I'm only getting 1 honor, whereas if I dig through that, I can get 3 honor off of that one, and that's going to help me later. The bird in the hand, 2 in the bush decisions that you're making throughout this epic conflict where you're fighting off these waves of bad guys coming from all directions, and all of them having a boss fight at the end of the deck that you have to deal with as well, and you don't even know which bosses are coming. I'm very impressed. If you are a solitaire fan, Eiyo is almost worth the price of admission on its own. And my only regret is I wish it could play at 2 players with Jen. I think it'd be great. I don't know how, but I would love to be back-to-back surrounded by all that. On my turn, playing some cards, on Jen's turn, playing her cards, and trying to coordinate. But even still, as a solitaire-only game, it is a blast. And like I said before, folks, just go watch my individual run-throughs to see how it feels and why I feel that way. But anyway, then moving on to Space Lunch. Now, this is interesting. I said right up front, there is a wide variety of depth to these games, and I'm really referring to Space Lunch here because this is definitely the lightest game of the bunch. And I think it is the most ideally suited one to play with families or kids or, complete board game novices, muggles, non-gamer geeks out there. Because at its core, this is another card drafting set collection game like 15 Days Before It, but the core thing of what you're trying to do almost, now, and don't stick with me, folks, this is going to sound a little crazy, it almost has the simplicity of tic-tac-toe. This feels, don't get me wrong, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it. This kind of feels like gamers tic-tac-toe. By which I mean, it's a totally different style of game, but there's a very clear object of what you are trying to achieve in this game. And it is very easy for your opponent to stop you from doing that. And in so doing, that preventing them from being able to achieve what they want to do. You can very quickly feel like, when you first start playing Space Lunch, like, oh, this is a game of total stalemates. Because the whole goal, trying to get 3 sets of 3 unique alien dishes at this space buffet that we're eating at so that we can instantly win. Hey, you know what? If I see you're going for a set, I can always stop you from that. And so on the surface, it seems really simple. But here's where the cleverness comes from in this game. There's 2 ways for it to end. It can end in a stalemate if nobody was able to achieve getting the 3 sets for the instant win. Again, it can end in a stalemate. Like tic-tac-toe can often end in a stalemate. But in this game, if it ends in a stalemate, there still will be a winner because you have to make a decision right from the get-go, and you're constantly reevaluating for this. Am I trying to go for those sets, those 3 of a kinds? Because if I can get 3 of a kinds, I can win the whole thing. But if I fail at that, all those 3 of a kinds are worthless for the final scoring, and whoever had the most pairs wins. So, throughout the game, do I think I can pull this off? Because I see you going for 3 of a kinds. You know what? Maybe I'm going to let you have that first 3 of a kind so that I keep working on pairs. Because this is going to end in a stalemate. Make no mistake, I know it's going to end in a stalemate. And yeah, I'll let you have 1 3 of a kind, fine. And then I keep on working on my pairs because I'm saving up for that big score. And I could stop you from getting that second 3 of a kind, or I can get another pair, or I could get another special power, because getting those special power drinks is huge. And often you're more focused on them than actually whether you're trying to make pairs or 3 of a kinds. But anyway, so okay, I'll let you have that one too. It's fine, because that's going to get me what I need. And then, oh no, you used a special power, got that third pair, and you won. And all of that saving up I did for the ending I thought was going to happen didn't go the other way. But it could be on the opposite side. So, actually, kind of like Rebis, this is a deceptive game at first glance. That's why I'm saying, at first glance, it feels like Gamers Tic-Tac-Toe. But then the more you get into it and the more you realize, oh, well, I thought I knew how this game was going to go, but one well-placed, well-timed special power of switching things around so that, you can't get the thing you want anymore, and now it's going to fall into my lap instead, could change the whole thing on a dime. So, my wife and I, Jen, we really enjoyed this as a 2-player game. But it was still the lightest. And I would say it was light enough that I could easily teach this to play with my mom if I wanted to. And I think we'd have a little bit more fun. So it was a nice one. It's cool. It is surprising, too, that this one only has a solo or 2-player. As the lightest of the bunch, you would have expected, hey, maybe that you could play this one at higher player counts for a bigger group of non-gamer geeks. So this is really a travel pack, mostly for gamer geeks. And if you're somebody, hey, they don't know anything about games, you could teach this. And, if you help them through it, because everybody, I think, is going to have an initial response of, this is so simple. But again, like Rebis before it, there is hidden depth here. Although still, Space Lunch is the lightest. And also, I will say, of the 5, Space Lunch has the weakest solo mode, because the solo mode, to make it work, has to completely jettison the special power cards. And that is really kind of the heart and soul of the game. It still works, it's adequate, but it's nowhere near as good as any of the other solo games, especially Eiyo are. So Space Lunch, I think, fits a specific niche where you're looking for a lighter game with only one other player to play. But hey, you know what? You're carrying around 5 games, you might find yourself in that situation. And now the last one, I saved for last, Golems. I ultimately do think it is my favorite of the bunch. It is another excellent one. It's another one only for 1 or 2 players, and I think it works equally well both ways. Why do I like it the most? Well, it's the other one from Testini, the designer who really pulled me in, and I already knew I liked his work. And while on the surface there's nothing really spectacular about this game other than the wonderful production, I love those little space gems. They're just awesome. I assume my prototype was representative of the final, I don't know. You'd have to check out the Kickstarter page. You can hit that eye to go check out the Kickstarter page and learn more if you want. But what do I love about it? Multi-use cards. I love multi-use cards. One of my favorite game mechanism of all time. And every round, when I take one of these cards from the draft, and I got to decide, okay, is this going to be is this going to be resources? Or am I going to keep it in my hand so it's something I can build later? Or is it going to be some special power? And if it's going to be a special gem power, am I going to use that? Or am I instead going to do set collection for that? Every card you take, or the in-game objective. Am I going to take this for an in-game objective, or am I going to take it for a double bonus card? But as I'm building up the resources so I can make these golems, which are going to score more and more points, once I've made the golem, the tough decisions are not done. Now I've got to decide, am I going to jettison some of those resources cards that I will definitely need later to pump up the value of that golem? Never mind the fact that everybody has a secret objective right from the get-go, and you might have more, so that really kind of directs you in certain ways. And yeah. And then if all that weren't enough, and that would have been to make this a special little fun game that I would always want to keep in the glove box of the car, because it's just such a great game. I think Jen and I would play it just ad infinitum. It just has so much replay. But then on top of that, it revisits, to my way of thinking, one of the greatest modern board game design innovations of all time. When you're drafting, if you choose not to take something, that's fine, but everything that you didn't take, everything that got left behind when you're drafting, becomes more valuable for players later on. Yeah, I mean, this is most famously seen in Small World, although it was in Vinid Vici or something like that before Small World, and it's been in other games like Firenze since then, what is it? Century Spice Road, another a game that uses that idea of, oh, I want all of these. Okay, I'll take the one that's best, but now I make the ones that remain more attractive for other players. And if nobody ever takes that one, finally, it's got so much resources, even though nobody wants it, I gotta take it because I get all those resources. That core system works wonderfully well here. And I have to say, it's really clever how it's implemented as well, because it doesn't have to be quite so staid in that it's always on a linear track. Now you can just kind of jump around. Really clever. And again, like all the games, gorgeous and fun. And this one, I would say, works equally well as a 2-player or a solo game. So, of all of them, I'm going to have to rank these. I'd probably go Golems number 1. And even though I'm not a solo player, Eiyo is so much fun. Then 15 Days, then Rebis, and finally Space Lunch. Although that's not a slam on Space Lunch. Like I said, it just fits a niche. It scratches an itch that maybe isn't one that Jen and I are looking for quite as much. But like I said right up front, folks, this is an impressive collection of games. The Matchbox collection. And that's the preview, folks. And you can go ahead and check out the Kickstarter page. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Have a very nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.